Ryan's starting to smile.
I don't know what I said.
Wow. Oh my God, I'm in charge of this thing. I can't laugh too much.
It's funny as fuck.
This is shit that somebody will clip and be like, "Look at these guys."
It's some music, man. Oh, I can't breathe.
Oh man.
Oh man. I pissed my pants.
This is fucking Jay. I'm so mad.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
Oh my God.
Oh, fuck, dude.
Oh man, that's so great.
Yeah.
Jay,
and,
you there, right, bro?
I
Jay's
can't
dying.
hold it.
Fuck,
Jay, you're
Jay.
still laughing.
Dude, Jay's losing his shit, bro. Like, it's just...
Right.
Jeremy Kenny.
I tried to hold it together. I was like,
I don't know why I can't stop laughing at this.
There you go.
Water.
Jay, drunk through PO, unmute.
God.
What's wrong with Jay?
Well, we have some unfortunate sad news for you. And I think I'll just get an article. Unfortunately, the great actor Paul Reubens, he is no longer with us. I gotta check it. No, I gotta check. I'm waiting for. I'm gonna. You know what? Unfortunately, Paul Reubens has left Hollywood. It's very sad. If you remember, I remember a little bit. So let's get an NBC article up. And so Paul Reubens, actor best known as Pee Wee Herman, dies at 70. He rose to fame in He rose to fame in the 1980s playing the whimsical, childlike character on TV and in movies. Actor Paul Reubens, who came to fame in the 1980s as children's TV star Pee Wee Herman, has died after a cancer diagnosis. And let me check. Is it all good? Yeah, we're all good because I know on Saturday my stream for like 20 minutes or so there was like no audio. Diagnosis, his team said Monday. He was 70. Last night we said farewell to Paul Reubens, an iconic American actor, comedian, writer, and producer whose beloved character Pee Wee Herman delighted generations of children and adults with his positivity, whimsy, and belief in the importance of kindness, according to a statement posted to his Facebook. Paul fought bravely and proudly fought cancer for years with his trademark tenacity and wit. A gifted and prolific talent, he will forever live in the comedy pantheon in our hearts as a treasured friend and a man of remarkable character and generosity of spirit. This is Pee Wee's Playhouse, which was a big show back in the day. It had not been previously disclosed that Reubens was diagnosed with cancer. The announcement of his death included a personal statement from the actor explaining why he had kept his medical condition under wraps. Oh my God. I'm not smiling because I think it's terrible, but I'm just still thinking about what the Josiah Rises title is going to be. Let me finish this. The announcement of death included a personal statement from the actor explaining why he kept his medical condition around. Please accept my apology for not going public with what I've been facing the last 6 years, he wrote. I have always felt a huge amount of love and respect from my friends, fans, and supporters. I have loved you all so much and enjoying making art for you. Yeah, Reubens brought to fame for creating the sarcastic but good-natured man Pee Wee Herman, a character whose red bow tie and sneering catchphrase, I know who you are, but what am I, were ubiquitous in the 80s and early 90s. Pee Wee Herman was the star of a Los Angeles stage play produced by Reubens that gained enough following that HBO recorded and broadcast a performance in 1981. That eventually led Reubens to a big break. The 1985 movie Pee Wee's Big Adventure helmed by first-time feature director Tim Burton. Oh wow, that was Tim Burton's first. The movie followed Pee Wee's surreal and slapstick journey to find his missing bicycle, and while a modest box office hit, became a cult favorite. The success of Pee Wee's Big Adventures led to Reubens landing a Saturday morning CBS show, Pee Wee's Playhouse. The live-action show was a hit with kids and adults alike and ran from 1986 to 1991. But Reubens' rise to fame was all in 1991 after he pleaded no contest to an incident exposure at an adult movie theater in Sarasota, Florida. Then, in 2004, Reubens was sentenced to 3 years probation after pleading guilty to misdemeanor obscenity charge involving photos of minors engaged in sexual conduct that were seized from him. Dear God. I did not know about that. He returned to the big screen following the exposure with a cameo as a Penguin's father in Burton's 1992 blockbuster sequel, Batman Returns. That same year, he fully shed his Pee Wee persona by playing a snarling bloodsucker in the Buffy the Vampire film. Reubens was critically acclaimed in 2001 for playing a drug-dealing hairdresser in the movie Blow alongside Penelope Cruz and Johnny Depp. His TV credentials included appearances of 30 Rock, The Blacklist, and Gotham. Reubens was, like no one else, a brilliant and original comedian who makes kids and their parents laugh at the same time. Late night comedian Jimmy Kimmel said. He never forgot a birthday and shared his genuine delight for silliness with everyone he met. My family and I will miss him. Comedian and podcaster Conan O'Brien recalled the magic, generosity, artistry, and devout silliness of Paul Reubens. Everyone I know received countless nonsensical memes from Paul on their birthday. I mean everyone, O'Brien said in a statement. His surreal kindness and unrelenting kindness were a gift to us all. Damn, this hurts. So, just a moment. I mean, it's pretty sad. I didn't know about that case with the minors, but which is pretty bad. But looks like nothing came of it. Didn't look like he was involved in it. Which I guess it's a good thing. But just stinks. Really does stink. Oh well. So now that we've got that done, I think we can move on to the real reason why we're here on this stream. Niger, the country in Africa. And this was recent. This is pretty recent. Breaking. Mali and Burkina Faso have officially announced that they will declare war if Western-controlled ECOWAS nations invade Niger. And earlier, actually, Algeria pledged their support toward Niger. So, Niger. And I've also heard stuff about Chad and Sudan. Like, look, Algeria will support Niger in case of external military aggression, according to Algerian publication Intel Curry. They report on the potential invasion of Niger under the leadership of ECOWAS, stating that Algeria will not remain ideal while its neighboring country faces an invasion. There are unconfirmed reports that the Algerian army has started increasing security measures, bringing its level of readiness on the border with Niger. And these are the countries that released official statements in support of Niger: Libya, Mali, Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Guyana. Apparently also has a juntas. This is from DD Geopolitics. Guyana's junta also supports Niger military coup leaders. Guyana's ruling junta, which toppled President Alpha Conde in 2021 and a 2021 coup, said it backs the soldiers who seized power in Niger last week. The junta, known as the CNRD, is convinced that the new authorities will make every effort to guarantee the stability and harmony in Niger and in the sub-region. The Chief of Defense, General Ibrahim Sori Bangura, said in a statement. Sanctions and military force cannot be a solution to the current problem, Bangura said. Therefore, CNRD refrained from applying these illegal and inhumane sanctions against the brotherly people and Nigerian authority. Nigerian. As Nigeria looks like there was talk earlier this morning that Niger, and this was a joint statement from Mali and Burkina Faso. Any military intervention against Niger would almost amount to a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali. Any intervention Niger would result in the withdrawal of Burkina Faso and Mali from the ECOWAS. Because France, Macron, who should be caring about his own country instead of robbing the people of Niger of their own. Hang on. Oh my God. Release the Kraken. Just. Let's reread this. You read a military match. Niger will be declaration war against Burkina Faso and Mali. According to a joint statement from and there's this. It's a lie space. We'll go look at that. July 1st, a military. According to a joint statement from the governments of Ouagadougou and Bamako on Monday, July 31st, a military intervention in Niger to reinstate the elect President Mohamed Bazoum, who was overthrown in a coup, would be considered a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali. Yeah. No. Oh, because I would go in, but I'm afraid that's going to affect my mic here. And so and Germany has also suspended development aid and budget support to Niger. Berlin announced on Monday, like Paris on Saturday, the suspension of its development aid and budget support to Niger after the military coup against President Mohamed Bazoum. So that the coup, I think, happened on Friday, and this is France issues threatening ultimatum to Niger. Paris, together with the countries of the West African Coalition, demands the restoration of deposed president. And so the restoration of power of deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. The new authorities of Niger received 1 week to implement the decree. In the African Republic, there are now several military bases of Western countries with a total coverage of 1.5 thousand troops, French and 1,000 U.S. military. What? I didn't even realize we had a base. Like, what are we doing in Niger?
Autorités, j'ai l'insigne honneur de donner une lecture.
And this is the statement from, I guess, the joint statement. I'm not sure who this.
Du communiqué aux autorités conjoint numéro 001 du Burkina Faso et de la République du Mali. Communiqué dont la teneur suit. Les gouvernements de transition du Burkina Faso et du Mali ont appris par voie de presse les conclusions des sommets extraordinaires de la Communauté économique des États d'Afrique de l'Ouest, CEDEAO, et de l'Union économique et monétaire ouest-africaine, UEMOA, tenue le 30 juillet 2023 à Abuja, sur la situation politique au Niger. Les gouvernements de transition du Burkina Faso et du Mali, 1. expriment leur solidarité fraternelle et celle des peuples burkinabés et maliens au peuple frère du Niger qui a décidé en toute...
Okay, we have big news. Big news just breaking. Hang on. Gonzalo Lira is alive. Right, so this is right now. I'm trying to get out of Ukraine, seek political asylum in Hungary. Either I'll cross the border and make it to safety, or I'll be disappeared by the Kiev regime. This is what happened to me over the past 3 months. On May 1st, I was arrested for my YouTube videos. The photo of my arrest are pretty funny. Mooring bed head made me look like a character out of Dr. Seuss. My crime was making videos critical of the West and their proxy regime in Kiev and how they are destroying Ukraine. Attached to these tweets is a full indictment against me, both original Ukrainian and English translation. As you can see, even the prosecutor admits I committed no crime. I mean, I guess we could. This is, I guess, the Ukrainian one. As you can, in the prosecutor admits I have committed no crime against property or any person, and certainly provide no aid or intel to the Russians. I don't see the English version. My indictment explicitly states that all I did was discuss publicly known facts about the war. The epitome of free speech in a democracy, but Zelensky's Ukraine is no democracy. It is a thriving, corrupt, murderous gangster regime pretending to be a polite Western democracy. Lira Lopez Gonzalo Angel. So this is accused of committing prosecution, distribution of materials containing the justification recognition as legitimate, denial of the armed aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, which began in 2014, including by presenting the armed aggressor of Russia against Ukraine as a internal civil conflict, justifying reorganizing as legitimate the temporary occupation of part of territory of Ukraine, glorifying the people who carried out the armed aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine. And you could read the rest of this because this is pretty long. And I did read the highlight parts, and it just explained to you what he was accused of. And this is all you. I'm not an expert in you. That's not my expertise. I'm no expert in the Ukrainian, any domestic Ukrainian law. So once arrested, I was given this documentation assuring me that I was guaranteed the right to contact my lawyers and loved one as well as post bail. In fact, I was blocked from calling anyone, even my lawyers, and I was not permitted to post bail. I thought I had the cash to do so. In other words, the formalities were carried out scripturiously, while judicial and ethical grotesque ruled that Zelensky's Ukraine, and I cannot, I guess, grotesque Harry's rule that Zelensky's Ukraine, that what his thuggish regime cares about, the perception of democracy and the rule of law, so as to mask the sordid and corrupt reality. That's why they relentlessly persecute anyone who tells the truth about this war. I'm not the only so-called propagandist the Kiev regime has thrown in prison. That's also why they shoot any AFU soldier who dares retreat. That's why the AFU also are so horrific but hidden. As you can see by the indictment. The video I made that reality chapped their ass was Ukraine, a primer, which gives the historical background to the conflict, where I say outright that this invasion wasn't out of the blue, that indeed it was provoked by the Kiev regime. Once inside Scilence prison, I was tortured in 2 of the 4 cells I was in by the other prisoners. Guards never beat prisoners. They outsource torture to the other prisoners. One prisoner actually apologized to me, telling me he had no choice. He wasn't lying. I understood. I got a cracker in my first cell, but it wasn't too bad. The worst hatch was in my 4th cell. From 1 p.m. on June 21st until 7 p.m. the next day, 30 hours, I was being and sleep deprived, my arm twisted the wrong way around the shoulders, and generally being pretty bad. I've been taking a beating in my time, so sure, it hurt like hell, but it was manageable. But then, at one point, 2 thugs held my head and used a toothpick to scratch the whites off my eye while asking if I could still read if I had just one. Not gonna lie, that was unnerving. Near the end of the session, one of the thugs struck me in the chest so hard and released so repeatedly that the being left a yellow and green splotch dead center on my sternum. He was berated by the cell boss because he left a mark on me, which was a no-no for Sep. As then luck would have it, 2 days later, while the bruising was in full bloom, a senior guard came to give me a wellness check. This was likely because of Chilean embassy effort. The U.S. embassy called me 3 times, but gave me nothing but support, empty broma. The guard told me to remove my shirt so he could look over. The bruising was really spectacular. But he just nodded and pretended he didn't see a thing. Perceptions. He checked me, right? Why was I being to the point of torture? Well, it wasn't over my YouTube videos. I was arrested. I was in prison because of my videos, no doubt. The videos are why the SBU arrested me and put me in Scilence prison without bail. But as they investigated me and examined my computers and account, all of which they confiscated and opened, the SBU realized I'm not poor. Once they imprisoned me for my videos, the SBU took the opportunity to extort money from me, using guards as accomplices who in turn used the prisoners as the muscle. How I discovered this is too complicated for a Twitter thread, but I'm writing a book about it. All told, they extorted 70,000. They extorted 70,000 out of me and split it among themselves. They also took another $9,000 when they arrested me, my emergency cash, and another 11 grand, which the money was the bail money. With the computers, iPhone, etc., I'm out of even $100,000 on this adventure. I'm never seeing any of that back, not even the bail money, because I've decided to leave Ukraine before my trial. My trial is on Wednesday, August 2nd. I've already been told I will be found guilty. My sentence will be 5 to 8 years in a prison labor camp. But here's the thing. The conditions of my bail are that I have to wear an electronic monitor, surrender my passport, and not leave the city of Kharkov, much less the country. However, after posting bail, I didn't get the monitor, and they returned my passport. They're the SPU officials. They returned our document. They confiscated my driver's license and motor registration. And so I told an inmate how last year I'd been detained by release, but told not to leave Ukraine. He laughed. They're telling you to leave. This time it looked like the same is happening. They're not telling me to leave, but leaving the door open. Or so I hope. Or maybe I'm being set by them just so they can justify putting me away at labor camp, so no one will ever know about their sordid extortion scheme. I simply don't know. So I decided to die trying. I rode my motorcycle across Ukraine, 14,000 kilometers in 2 days. I'm going to Hungary to ask for political asylum. When I fail to show up in court, an arrest warrant will be issued, likely an international warrant. No doubt other EU countries will comply like sheep, returning me to serve 5 to 8 years in a prison labor camp. Regardless of the fact that Kiev arrested and imprisoned me for YouTube videos for freedom of speech, what happened to European democratic values law? And the U.S. State Department would return me to. I'm not a black lesbian druggie or a transgender grifter. Besides, Victoria Nuland hates my guts, or so I'm told. I'm hoping the Hungarians will read my indictment and say, this is BS. We're not sending him back. I'd say just go to Russia. That would be the smarter move, in my opinion. I'm also posting videos to the two channels I have access to, the Roundtable and Gonzalo Lira again. If you don't hear from me in the next 12 hours, well, I'm on my way to a labor camp. Wish me luck. And George, Galloway said, by the grace of God, you are alive. Our prayers are answered. All praise to the Almighty. That's crazy. So, prayers for Gonzalo Lira. I mean, I'm hoping he gets out of here. I'm hoping he can get out of Ukraine, and I would have just thought, but Hungary might be a better option, to be honest. Let me actually post this. Let me see if there, because it looks like I'm hoping that Hungary, well, yeah. We're going to have to see more from George Galloway on this, because this is pretty significant. And another significant thing occurred and has also been occurring in relation to what's going on with Africa. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, he's like one of the youngest leaders in the African Union, shook Putin's hand at the Russia-Africa summit recently, He has banned uranium exports to France and the United States. And I think that we need to we're just gonna have to see in 12 hours, like Gonzalo Lira said. It's anyone's guess what could happen. He's still alive. And apparently he's uploaded videos to his channel. And he's actually live right now. Now let me go subscribe to him and tell him I sent you here. Zach.
I hope you've had a good time. I didn't have such a good time. I spent 9.5 weeks in prison here in Ukraine. I've been out on bail since July 6th. Today is July 31st. And to prove the time, I just checked on my subscription. Defense Politics Asia, which is a pretty good channel, just put out a video called Niger on the Brink of Regional War. That should prove the time that I'm recording this video. Now, at the same time that I'm posting this video, I'm posting a long thread on my Twitter account.
Yep.
My Twitter
We just read that.
account is Gonzalo Lira 1968. Gonzalo Lira 1968, one word altogether. And in that, I discuss what has happened to me over the past 3 months in some detail. I also include the indictment against me that I'm going to be tried on. I'm going to be tried on Wednesday, August 2nd, the day after tomorrow, as a matter of fact. I posted both the original Ukraine language version and the translation. The translation was by the court-appointed translator, so I have no idea if it's accurate or not. Those of you who speak Ukraine will be able to give a better sense as to whether that translation is accurate, but that's besides the point. I put up the entire indictment in both the original and the translation so that you can see exactly what I was charged with and imprisoned for. Now, the charges are very serious because the penalty is 5 to 8 years in a prison labor camp. I'm 55 years old. And some of you may know, I have a fairly serious heart condition. I'm not going to survive 5 to 8 years. And I've already been told by people who would know that I will be found guilty. And because of circumstances, it would be convenient for me to serve out that sentence, for me to basically disappear. Disappear in a prison labor camp and, potentially die there, either naturally or unnaturally, as the case may be. Now, in the tweet thread, I go into more or less what happened. I composed that tweet thread last night. It took me 2 hours to do it because there was a lot of information and, keeping it to 25 tweets, it's tough. But anyway, the upshot is that I was accused of being a pro-Russian propagandist, basically, cut through the legalese, it was basically that. I was also accused of denying the Russian invasion, which is laughable. I mean, I've always said that the Russians invaded. It's self-evident, I never denied that fact. They said that I was justifying this invasion that was unprovoked, and of course, we all know that it was provoked. It didn't come out of the blue. It wasn't that the Russians one day decided, hey, let's just invade Ukraine. No, it was provoked, and I gave a very detailed explanation as to why it was provoked in a video that really chapped the ass of the prosecutor's office, apparently. The video of mine called Ukraine a Primer, which of course goes into the backstory and the history of relations between these two countries and why they wound up going to war as they are currently embroiled in. So anyway, the point is I'm going to be found guilty. And because of things that happened, corruption and extortion that happened in prison against me, I will be found guilty. I will not get a suspended sentence. I will have to serve out my term and likely die in this prison labor camp. Shit. Sorry, hang on. Sorry about that. I don't have 3 hands. Anyway. So, realizing that my court date is the day after tomorrow, and realizing some other information that was quite strange, I was granted bail after innumerable hurdles, because when I was originally arrested, I was nominally supposed to get a lawyer, have access to a lawyer, be able to call my loved ones, and arrange for bail. Now, insofar as lawyers, I have lawyers up the wazoo. Insofar as loved ones, not as many as lawyers, but I have quite a few that I care about very deeply, most especially my small children. For those of you who don't know, I have 2 children, Veronica, who is 10. She just turned 10. She turned 10 while I was in prison. And my son, Ramon, who is 8. And of course, I wanted to talk to them, but I was not allowed to speak to them during the entirety of my stay in prison. And of course, I wasn't allowed to post bail, even though I had the means to post bail. Now, let me explain that situation, which was very interesting. You see, nominally, on the first day that I was arrested, I could have posted bail. But I was not given the opportunity to do so, to contact the people who would have the cash available to post my bail. And it wasn't that much. It was $11,000, which I don't want to sound arrogant. $11,000 is quite a bit of money for most people. I am blessed by the good fortune of having the means to put together that kind of money at a moment's notice. And so I could have posted bail on the very first day, but the authorities simply didn't allow me to do it, even though they said I could. Now, I was imprisoned briefly for 2 nights. I was in interrogatory prison number 1. That's the name of it. And then after that, I spent the remaining 9 weeks, exactly 9 weeks, in CISO prison, which is also an investigative.
And everybody go on Twitter, tweet to Prime Minister Reubens to give refuge to Gonzalo Lira. I'm going to just play the video.
That is a prison where individuals who have been accused of a crime are held while their case is investigated by either the police or the SBU who has arrested them. The SBU, for those of you who don't know, is the State Security Services of Ukraine. They are basically the descendants of the KGB, okay?
And most likely the Ukrainian officials are already looking for him. I'm hoping that Victor Orban, like if he does, I hope he does not give it up. I hope he does not.
Anyway, I wasn't allowed to post bail, and it was only through fairly heroic measures and a lot of pressure, political pressure from the government of Chile and apparently the State Department as well, because they didn't seem to like the fact that I wasn't being allowed to post bail. I spoke with representatives of the U.S. Embassy 3 times during the 9 weeks I was there. And they just gave me bromides. They made no effort to pull me out, you know. I mean, if only I'd been a black lesbian druggie or a transgender grifter, then maybe they would have done something. Well, no, if I'd been one of those 2 things, I would have been out instantly. But of course, since I'm not, and since a couple of people who would know have told me that Vicky Newland actually knows about me and hates my guts. So there you go. So anyway, the point is, there was the appearance of unfairness, so eventually I was allowed to post bail. But the bail conditions were very interesting because I had to surrender my passports. I had to wear electronic monitor. I wasn't allowed to leave the city of Kharkov or the country. And they also confiscated, of course, all of my computers, my iPad, my iPhone. They also confiscated about $9,000 that I had as emergency cash. You know, the kind of cash you have around just in case of anything. Well, they confiscated that, and they confiscated a bunch of my documents, specifically my driver's license, my Chilean identity card, and the registration cards for my motorcycles. I don't own a car, by the way. And so I was told in no uncertain terms that I had to stay in Kharkov and not leave the city under any circumstances, and of course not leave the country. And I would get this ankle monitor, and I would have to surrender my passports. But when I posted bail and was released, my passports were returned to me. I didn't get any kind of ankle monitor. And a few days later, I went to the SBU offices of the investigator who had investigated my case. And he returned my driver's license, my Chilean ID card, and my registration documents for my motorcycles. As you can see, there's my bike. I don't know if you can see it properly. There you go. And so this was very interesting to me. Now, last year, I was detained by the SBU, also for videos that were very critical of what was going on. And they investigated me because they thought, curiously enough, that I was some sort of Russian agent. Okay, of course, I'm not a Russian agent, you know. And I'm just a regular guy living in Ukraine who saw what was happening, was horrified by this war, and thought that the only solution was to sue for peace because it's inevitable. Because if, you know, if a man such as myself, 55 years old, 83 kilos, not in the best of shape, gets in the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime, I mean, we know how it's going to end, right? Yeah, that was pretty much the situation insofar as the Ukraine and Russian conflict is concerned. And perhaps I did not emphasize this enough in my videos, but the purpose of my videos was to point out how horrifying the war was, how detrimental to the Ukraine people and the Ukraine nation it was, and the only solution was to find a peace settlement of some sort, of any sort, to prevent the complete destruction of the Ukraine nation and the Ukraine people. Well, that happened. About a third of the population of Ukraine has left the country. 20% of it is controlled and will be annexed by the Russians. And there's no doubt in my mind that they intend to capture much more territory of the Ukraine nation, probably up to the Dnieper River, and take everything east of it. And that will include Odessa, of course. And Ukraine will be broken. It's inevitable at this point, unfortunately. But anyway, the point that I wanted to make is that last year I was detained. I was investigated to see if I was a Russian agent. They realized I wasn't. and I was let go. But I was told in no uncertain terms that I could not leave the city or the country while my case was investigated. And me being a very law-abiding citizen, because the extent of my criminal career up to this point was that in New York City in the year 2000, I was living in Lower Manhattan, and I had a dog, and I would walk the dog without a leash. And one time I got a ticket, $50, which I didn't pay. That's the extent of my law-breaking career. I'm very much a person who believes in civil society and following the rules and following the law. And so I was told that I couldn't leave the country. I couldn't leave the city even, which I wanted to because I wanted to be near my family. So I was a good boy. Later in prison, in CISO, I told this to some of the other prisoners there, because they're not inmates, because none of them have been convicted. Their cases are all being investigated. And some of these investigations take years, plural. Okay, one man I knew had been there for, as he said very proudly, 3 years and 3 months. Another had been there 6 years. Because what they do is that they arrest you and charge you, and they start their investigation, and they'll get around to the investigation when they get around to it. So a lot of times people just sit there forever. And that's basically the justice system in Ukraine. So anyway, the point is that my case was expedited. Prisoners couldn't believe that my case was investigated in a month, exactly a month. By the 31st of May, they had completed their investigation of me being this evil Russian propagandist, and the indictment was drawn up, which, as I said, you can read on Twitter and the thread that I posted at the same time that I'm posting this video. And where was I? I lost my train of thought. When I was in prison, and I told the other prisoners how I'd been detained in April of 22, and told them in no uncertain terms not to leave the country, the prisoners laughed. And they said, "You idiot." They were leaving the door open for you to leave. They wanted you to leave, you know, less hassle for them. And me, of course, you know, retrospectively, it's obvious. But at the time, I said, no, I can't do anything. They're telling me to stay, so I must stay, you know, like an idiot. That's simple as that. So anyway, insofar as my current, status of being out on bail, and the judge was very clear that it was very explicit. I couldn't leave the city, I couldn't leave the country, and I had to surrender my passports. I have two, the American and Chilean. And of course, they also confiscated these documents for my transportation. And yet, when I was released on bail, they gave me all the stuff back. They didn't put the electronic monitor, and they allowed me to keep my passports. And what's more, And where was I? I lost my train of thought. When I was in prison, and I told the other prisoners how I'd been detained in April of 22, and told in no uncertain terms not to leave the country.
We're just going to react to this one. He's actually going to post later. He actually going to post in a couple
laughed, and they said, "You idiot." They were leaving the door open for you to leave. They wanted you to leave, you know, less hassle for them. And me, of course, you know, retrospectively, it's obvious. But at the time, I said, no, I can't do anything. They're telling me to stay, so I must stay, you know, like an idiot. And the judge was very clear that and of course, they also confiscated these documents for my transportation. And yet, when I was released on bail, they gave me all the stuff back. They didn't put the electronic monitor, and they allowed me to keep my passports. And what's more, when I went to the SBU offices to retrieve my driver's license and my registration cards and my Chilean identity card, they asked me, you know, and do you have any identification other than this stuff? Oh yeah, I have my passports. Oh, and you didn't surrender them? No, I have it right here. I said, like an idiot. And they were like, oh, okay. And so these are the options that I have. Since I know I'm going to be found guilty and I will be sent to a prison labor camp,
Effectively a death sentence.
and because of events that happened in prison where I was extorted for a sizable amount of money, I will be sent to a prison labor camp come my court date. That's inevitable. Okay? And there won't be any suspended sentence and there won't be any mercy, all because of my YouTube videos. I mean, I want to emphasize this, you know. In the indictment, if you read it, you will see that the prosecutor himself says that I committed no crime against any person or property, and that my crimes are literally speech crimes, saying things that the government doesn't like. Huh? Ukraine is supposed to be this big democracy.
Yeah, no.
That it wants to join the European Union and because it has European values. European democratic values.
Nope. You're still.
What higher value does a democracy have than free speech? My case is all about free speech, and I spent 2 months and change in a maximum security prison. And by the way, when I say okay, well let me finish that point. I spent 2 months and change in a maximum security prison over things that I said, opinions I gave regarding publicly available information that is undisputed. This is the epitome of free speech, and yet I went to prison for it, and I will likely go 5 to 8 years to a prison labor camp where, by the way, everybody in the CISO prison, the investigative prison where I was at, none of them wanted to go to that labor camp because they all said it's a death sentence, okay? And so I'm gonna be sent for 5 to 8 years because of YouTube videos that I made. Is that democratic? Does that sound like, European values to you? Sorry if this video is a little bit disorganized, because I'm a little bit stressed out, but the choices I realized are two. Either go to a prison labor camp and die there. Because like I said, I'm 55, I have a heart condition. So as it is, I'm not gonna live much longer. And 5 to 8 years at a prison labor camp, I'll be dead. I'll be killed off by the labor, I suppose. And if not, I will be killed on the inside, because what happened while I was at CISO, I realized that let me backtrack a little. While I was in CISO, I was extorted for a great deal of money, $70,000 to be precise. Now, how did this happen? Well, through various clues and various information that I acquired, which I intend to describe in detail.
Maybe we need to get Zelensky
in a book about the whole thing, if I live long enough to write that book. But anyway, the point is, I realized that once they arrested me on May 1st, the SBU, of course, confiscated my computers, and they got into all of my accounts, which they hadn't done before. Because what had happened was that one of the computers, I had left it in my motorcycle. And when they detained me that time, they hadn't realized that I had left it in my motorcycle, because, it has these, I don't know if you can see them, it has these suckers, right? And so in that computer, that was my personal computer, with my personal, they're all personal computers, but I mean, with my personal information, including my accounts. And while I was in prison, the SBU looked through my accounts and they realized that I'm not poor. Okay, I don't want to characterize it in any other way, but I have access to a lot of funds, and the way I live is fairly simply and low key. I don't even own a car because I was fortunate enough to earn a great deal of money as a writer when I was very, very young. And so I went through that phase of buying all the toys and all the crap that you really don't need to make your life happy. But I was young and I thought that I needed that crap. And so I bought it. And of course, it didn't make me particularly happy. And now, as a much older and hopefully wiser man, I don't have any of that crap. I don't need it. And so the SBU had assumed that I was just some poor schmuck. But when they saw my accounts, they realized that I wasn't a poor schmuck. And so what happened was that they got the prisoners in CISO, in one of the 4 cells I was in, the last one, the worst one. It was 7 other prisoners and myself. And as soon as I arrived, they beat the shit out of me. And they tortured me that time. It started on June 21st at 1 p.m. and it lasted 30 hours. It included beatings. It included sleep deprivation. I've been beaten up, so it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's not fun. It hurts, yeah, sure. But when I was young, I got into street fights and crap like that. And sometimes I won, and sometimes I got the shit kicked out of me. So the beatings I could handle, but when they started getting really, really pissed off at me because I kept insisting that I was just a journalist and I didn't have a pot to piss in and I had no money and I could not get them 70,000, thinking that they'd lay off, thinking too and realizing too that extortionists, when you give in to them and you pay them, then they'll come back the next day and want more and they'll beat you some more for more money, right? And so, of course, I denied the fact. I said I was just a poor writer, that I was living in Ukraine because it was so cheap and all the rest of it. Poor me, I don't have a pot to piss in. But they knew, and they kept insisting, and a very specific number, 70,000. And what really unnerved me was that in the hour, maybe 25, 26, 2 of these thugs held my head, and one of them used a toothpick to scratch the whites of my left eye. And the other guy, the guy who actually spoke a little bit of English, said, you can read with just one eye, right? Not gonna lie, that really freaked me out. Anyway, after about 30 hours of this, I realized that there was no escape for me. By the way, the guards came in because they do a nightly check-in to see that everything's copacetic, And the thing is, I saw that these guys had bribed those guards, bribed them with cigarettes and other things, because there's no money in the prison, but there are, little perks, little this and that, knickknacks and what.
That's how a lot of prison escape during World War II happened. U.S. soldiers would bribe German guards with stuff like chocolate for information. True story. Look it up.
And so the guards who did the nightly check-in were on the take, and they were in league with the gangsters, the thugs, in my prison cell. And so I realized that this could last indefinitely. And so while I still had all my marbles, because the sleep deprivation really affects you. And I've just, out of idle curiosity, because I'm that way, a few years ago when I was living in Amsterdam, I tried to see how long I could go without any sleep. I went, I want to say like 60 hours. I remember being surprised by the hallucinations which came on around after 40 hours or so. And I thought they were pretty cool. But after about 60 hours, that's when I was just out of it. And it was just out of idle curiosity that I did it, because like I said, I'm kind of weird, what the fuck can I say? And so after 30 hours, I was hallucinating a little bit. I was like seeing writing on the floor when there was none, of course, and little things like that, like little wormies moving around, But anyway, the important point, I realized I'd have to give up the ghost because nobody was going to save me. And so I started negotiating and stretching out this payment that I had to make because, you see, my bank accounts, in order to make a transfer, you need a little device that's a token that generates a number. So it's impossible to transfer any money without that little token. And those tokens are apps in my iPad and phone. And on top of that, because there's so much hacking going on from Ukraine, my banks, the websites to my banks to check certain accounts, the big ones, right? You can't access them from Ukraine. And my bank had to do special carve-outs, specific IP addresses that are tied to specific locations. And that's why, and those locations, of course, were far from Cecil Prison. That's why it was impossible for me to access those accounts, but it was possible for me to access a PayPal account that I had. Now, a PayPal account, it had quite a bit of money. It had $143,000 because it's just money that I've earned on my Patreon. And it's great money, but I do the Patreon more for the ego trip and getting more subscribers as opposed to needing the money. The SBU, obviously, take half.
I think we should get to the last one.
Bail. See, last year, when they detained me, because they didn't formally arrest me, they detained me.
It's live right now.
When they detained me in April of 22, they took control of 2 of my Google accounts. The Google accounts that controlled my previous channels, my Coach Red Pill channel and my Gonzalo Lira channel. You know, they never gave up that control of those accounts. I've never recovered those Gmail accounts and Google accounts that control those channels. But the Google account that controlled my current channel, Gonzalo Lira again, and the Roundtable, they gave that back to me. Okay, so that further gives me the hope that they're just basically saying, go away. That's what I'm hoping. But on the other hand, you know, I realize what they did. And I've outlined it to you in this video. And, you know, I don't know what to say. So, you know, you'll have to draw your own conclusions. By the way, during this past month that I've been free on bail, I obviously haven't been posting anything anywhere, just to keep a low profile and just to straighten out my head as to my options. I didn't want to be distracted with social media. I reached out to a few online people, but not all of the people that I know from the online world. Not because of anything in particular, but just, you know, I wanted to get in touch with people who could, you know, help me out in a practical way insofar as this current situation is concerned. Unfortunately, you know, all the avenues that I tried, it came to nothing. And so this is the situation I'm in. It's, well, look, on February 27th or 28th, I think it was the 20th, I'm not sure, I forgot. February 27th, 28th of 2010, I lived through the Great Chilean Earthquake. It was an 8.8 earthquake. And I happened to be on the 15th floor. My apartment was on the 15th floor. And it was spectacular. My building moved around from side to side, you know, like 3 meters off axis one way and 1.5 meters roughly on the other, and this elliptical swinging around. And I thought that the building was going to collapse and I was going to die. And of course it didn't, thank goodness. But that was the moment that I learned fatalism. But there are some things that are simply beyond your control, and you have to live through them. And you have to just go forward. And there's nothing you can do. Everything is beyond your control. You know? And we you know, fool ourselves thinking that we can control everything. And that causes so much anguish for no reason. We worry, we think this, that, the other. But you have to recognize when you have actual control over some situation and when that control is beyond you. And there is absolutely nothing that you can do. Nothing that you can do except move forward. So either I will cross the border into Hungary in the next couple of hours, or I will be arrested again, and God knows what will happen to me. So if I post again here on the video and on Twitter, then you know that I made it.
If you don't.
And if I don't, then you know that I didn't. And I would ask you humbly that if you don't hear from me again, anybody and everybody who's watching this video, please raise a ruckus, raise a fuss. Because ultimately, you know, as you can see in the indictment that I posted on Twitter, all of the pages are there. You can read it for yourself in Ukrainian and in English. The charges against me are just because of my opinion about this conflict. I did no harm to anyone. And they arrested me because they wanted to have on the nightly news a short little video of how they are fighting the propagandists. That's it. That's why they arrested me. The extortion stuff that I discussed, that happened later when they realized that I wasn't a poor schmuck. But the start of the genesis of this whole situation is because I had an opinion that went against the narrative. And that's why I went to prison. And that's why, if I'm arrested again, I will die in prison. So I ask you, please, as many people as possible, the American State Department knows exactly who I am and the situation I'm currently involved in. And they know the fate that awaits me. They know it. You know, they have that saying that, that I forget the wording exactly. You know, I'm a little stressed out, as you can imagine. But they have that saying that people are fundamentally good, but for evil to triumph, all you need is the indifference of good people. Please don't be indifferent to my fate. I ask you this very humbly. Please recognize that, well, the literal death that awaits me if this doesn't work out.
It was Edmund Buke.
Understand what's going on.
No, Burr. Edmund Burr. I am hoping so. I think that's a good place to end it. We've got to that crazy breaking news. I said be ready for a war with in sub-Saharan Africa. Also be ready for when Gonzalo Lira gets his asylum in Hungary and inevitably Viktor Orban turns down requests from the Western nations to release him, because I think that will end up happening. Be prepared for an invasion of Hungary. Okay, yep. Just gonna say, they'll say Orban is like Saddam Hussein. They'll say he's a dictator. We need democracy in Hungary. Just expect that. Hungary's going to get closer to Russia as things go. I would add more to the ticker, but I think that's not. But just really pray for Gonzalo Lira. Make sure that he gets into Hungary. Like the ticker said, pray for Alex McCarthy and Brian James. But I think Lira really deserves our prayers because of what he's done and what's about to happen. Whew, boy. And there's the stuff with Devin Archer, which we didn't get to. Might get to tomorrow. But let's hope by tomorrow's time, Hungary, there will be a Gonzalo will be back in Hungary. Will be in Hungary, and he will not be in a Ukraine labor camp. All right. Good night, everyone. I hope to see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.